It's set for 11:30 p.m. That's why.
Oh, is it? What? Uh-oh. Is there a problem with
It
that?
worked. I got it to work.
It worked? Okay. Sorry about that. Well, I just messed up the live stream. Anyways, welcome back to Grimerica Outlawed. We are here with Lisa Miron, author of World on Mute. She's a fellow Canadian pushing back against all this political corruption and stuff that's going on in Canada and the world. She's practiced as a litigator. Her Substack is lawyerlisa.substack.com. She's run her own firm and done large file litigation, including files against the government and class action work. And her Substack is great. All kinds of different stuff in there. Prolific with that. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, guys. I'm really happy to be here. And to your audience, hello. I think it's going to be an interesting discussion today. Lots going on.
Yeah, it will be. I'm looking forward to getting your take on a bunch of different things. I mean, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with your book, or how long you've been sort of pushing back? Because I feel like a lot of stuff has changed since 2020. A lot of people have come out with their voices, that have decided to push back on things. Like, is that you, for example, or?
Yeah. So, well, I wrote World on Mute. Look at it's upside down.
No, it's good.
Yeah. And you can get it on Amazon. And the premise I started to when I started to see that our speech was being culled, as a lawyer, that just was like, well, that's new. And then I saw that the order's doing it. I started researching it because we had the Jordan Peterson case in Canada. Right. And I started researching, well, it's not just Jordan Peterson now, is it? It's all the doctors.
Yeah, and John Carpe.
Say that again?
I think they just pulled Carpe's license officially yesterday. John Carpe from the JCCF.
Well, now did they?
Yeah, well, I know
can't confirm that.
He had been suspended for a while. I'm gonna try and dig it up while you're talking here, see if I can confirm it. But I swear I read something yesterday that said that they officially disbarred him yesterday.
Well, that's what I thought. I said, if you start going after the lawyers, you're taking apart society, because our constitutional orders, if you presume they work, are based on the fact that there's 3 branches of government, right? The judicial branch is supposed to rein in executive, that's administrative state, and the legislative branch. And the minute you can use a rogue power, right? Like this is a rogue power based on speech to cull the lawyers who would push back. Then you're not filing any of those cases. So then the Constitution itself stops working. So without any kind of constitutional amendment, there we have it. That's a sad day. There we have it. It's a sad day.
Yeah, 2 lawyers.
Right? It's a very sad day
for their misconduct, which amounted to an attack on judicial independence. Whatever that means.
Well, there's a little bit of an irony there. So, and it's not a temporary order, or how long is the disbarment? Is permanent?
Oh, let me just read through this. I'm assuming it's permanent. Reads the 18-page decision in December 23. He was disbarred. Judgment, lawyer's misconduct. I don't see.
I thought I remembered it being for a few years, but
we're on a peace bond. A hearing committee also ordered Carpe and Cameron to pay $7,457.50 and $5,000 respectively in costs. He hasn't been able to practice law since 2022. I'll see if I can figure out if it's why is there temporary ones? You could be temporary disbarred, I guess.
Yeah, the orders can vary, but this is the same things happening, around the world. In New Zealand, you've got Sue Gray, right? And any lawyer who happens to be pushing back is going to have trouble. And I've spoken to a lot of the lawyers. I haven't spoken to John Carpe. I've spoken to a lot of lawyers who have appeared on these what you would call litigations that are probably for the public, and they say they're being attacked in judgments. So obiter attacks specifically to them. The idea, what I discovered was that every way to earn a living, trans-occupationally and transnationally, is all of a sudden getting speech committees. Now, Carpe's wasn't really so much speech. He actually was spying on a judge, right? I think those were the allegations. But, you know, was the judgment heavy-handed?
Yeah, but I don't think that's the same thing.
Basically, they were spying on the judge because they thought the judge was not following the COVID measures, right? Is that what it kind of boiled down to? We had him on a few years ago. We should have him on again now.
Yeah, you
I
should.
don't think that's what this was about, though. I think this was about something else.
Well, I think that's the independence of the judiciary. That's the reference. That's the reference, right? If you're spying on a judge,
okay.
That's the reference to the independence of the judiciary. But, you know, John has been a hero in terms of the cases that he's been bringing and the cases he's willing to bring. And so I don't find, you know, these are, they're not coincidences. This is, there's been a targeted attack on the lawyers who are bringing forth. But you also have the concept, if you don't agree with your party, you don't get to earn a living, and that's communism, right? So all of a sudden, you know, if you don't agree with the party on a number of, you know, key doctrines in our society right now, you lose the right to earn a living, and that is chilling. And the Jordan Peterson case kind of tipped me off on what kind of speech you can't have, right? Because they listed all his inappropriate tweets, and one of those tweets was a retweet of Pierre Poilievre. So your inappropriate speech is a pro-nation state speech. It's your conservative party. And you know, just before we went on, Graham and I were talking about the aFLD and how terrible it is that all of a sudden seven people in a short amount of time have just died from that one party. And I have a post coming out, and it's not just that party. So in the Germany Politico, you know, the counterpoint to it is, well, it's not just aFLD's, you know, party candidates that are dying. It's you know, the Green Party and the Social Democratic Party, or I think it's the National Democratic Party. So other candidates opposing the globalist party in power are also dying suddenly.
Oh, I was going to ask that. So is there a trend? Is there a trend in those candidates for the other parties, even like in their political
there's
views?
Other parties that are running against the current, you know, the current.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Look at right. So there's other. So you know, when I think it was Alice, is it Weidel? I can't remember her last name. She says, well, it's statistically impossible that 4 die in such a small amount of time from one party. And then, you know, I'm reporting today and it's 7 and other candidates in other parties. So remember, you know, you had only WEF candidates running for the Liberal Party in Canada, and 200,000 votes go missing. So it seems right now the stakes are pretty high and everybody's going for broke. Was there a particular part of the book, like was the AI part of the book something you think your audience might be interested in?
Yeah, but I'm interested also in how you also found that, and how and when you found out that the corporations, like that this is kind of infiltrated into, I love the way you put it, like making money, like any kind of professions and all this stuff. It's basically making whoever makes a decent living have to fall in line. So how did you come into that with it being in all the corporations?
Well, so it's actually so saturated our society. It's in our unions. It's in the union constitution, right? You know, how you have to speak. It's in our school boards. It's our trustees. It's the bullying policies that will go after the kids. Then the parents who go to speak at school board meetings, they're bound by the bullying policies. And so every way to earn a living is now attacking speech specifically, right? And then there's the criminalization aspect, which is the next level. And then at the same time, on a sort of global level, what I discovered was that if you weren't captured, right, you're independently wealthy, you don't mind being broke or poor, you have your own store, your own business, your own farm, all of those methods to earn a living are being ratcheted and attacked, right, by the economy, by fiscal policies. So the fiscal policies are taking care of those people who are independent. The desire is that the desire to control goes right to AI. But the systems that are set up, I say, do not think of it like as Dr. Trozi's case or Jordan Peterson's or Sue Gray's case or, Didier Raoult's case. Think of it instead as one globalist beast system. And so, I assert to my readers that once you become regulated, you become a global citizen. You lose all your rights to nationality because courts are taking those absurd absurd decisions by these speech committees and giving them the force of law. So you become a global citizen. So I'm saying that, the architecture of the globalists are hidden in mechanisms that people are not even thinking about. People don't think about, your professional body. Oh, I have to take this course. I have to give them money. I have to, click off my DEI stuff once a year. No, that's the courts of the globalists, and they're going to eclipse our courts, I say. And that's the mechanism that you become a global citizen. And then I say it works with social credit. So your social credit is the idea that, again, on your speech, if you agree with your party, you earn a living. But the means to rate you and determine whether or not your speech accords works with these speech committees. So they haul you up, right? And then you don't earn a living. And what it does is, and everybody who's regulated right now are in bondage. They're slaves. They're slaves that can't speak. And so the people who speak out are retired, right? They're independent. They're like out of the system. They're outside of the system. Maybe they're Bitcoiners, whatever. They're outside. They feel like they can say these things and they don't understand the people in bondage. They don't understand that people are literally in bondage. They're afraid of saying the things publicly on the internet, at parties. Like it's already like East Germany. Yeah, in all of these professionals, but it's the occupations. When I saw I saw the collection of different ways to earn a living. Like, okay, so you're electricians, you're like, any way to earn a living is being like squeezed into the system. And then I saw the even bigger picture when I went into Africa. So there's a lot of disenfranchisement and poor people in Africa that might not be part of a regulated profession or occupation. So they have public snitch lines, right, for your speech. And so it's called Real 411. And you literally, it's utilized mostly in Africa for supporting non-globalist candidates. So your election speech. So if you start supporting a pro-nation state or what have you candidate, so it's in Africa, it's in Pakistan, it's in Brazil, and the methods are varied, but they're also the same. So it's weaved together. I think it's like a beast. It's a beast. It's got to be taken down. Like we don't get our liberty unless we plow through speech committees. And like the basic premise people have to really accept is either we're governed, historically through violence or through dialogue. And so, we're losing our speech at scale. I have judges being arrested for their decisions. Like, think about how sobering that is. So it was a judge in Germany. Canada? He made a decision on a mask. Germany. It was he made a decision on a masking case. It was a school and the petitioners wanted not to mask. They said, look, there's no evidence it works. We put on the masks, the cases go up. There's no evidence this works. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to, render a judgment in your favor. The Crown could have appealed, right? Like the normal course would be to appeal this. but instead he was charged criminally. And so you've got to see right now that what I call in pleading speech, the speech that you would make as a lawyer and go to court, like that's being curtailed. And what that does is it changes our constitution. It's communism. It changes our constitution. And people don't have the right arguments, and they're not articulating the right arguments. So I thought, I'm going to expand this. And then when I was assembling it, I kept rewriting the book because I kept seeing, I'm like, oh, all the speech you can't have hides a pillar of the globalist state. I'm going to want to tell people what the pillars of the globalist state are. Right. And so then I started to organize it. Well, okay, we're going to look at medical speech. Then I went to legal, constitutional, political speech. And then I went to the woke ideologies. That might be one of the most frightening. But then that can only be eclipsed by the last section, which was the emergency powers section. So the last section deals with how we're really setting up real Stasi units in these speech committees who are empowered with black box types of powers and able to round people up, to jail them, right, for their speech. And then who's actually cornered by this system is, defies the rule of law. Anyone who speaks to a regulated profession, sends communications to them, right? Anyone the government thinks should be regulated. So it's a real, some of the stuff, when I read it, I actually cried. I was like, oh, okay, so this is where we're going. And I wanted to explain it because I think we got to push back. In the medical, I came up to a place called Tariffs, and it looked at AI and the AI system. And Tariffs stands for the European Health Data Space. And so it was a weird acronym. It took the European Health Data, it took the D and the A and added this word space. And because I'm dyslexic, it scrambled to deaths, like right away for me. I'm like, well, that's a weird acronym, and it spells deaths. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to dig into this organization, this death organization. And what it did was it collected the means to have an AI data system govern us. So it said, well, we're going to have technical interoperability. So think of the whole world having the same technical systems that govern us. And we're going to have semantic interoperability. So all the codes have the same names so they can talk to each other, right? All the living codes, non-living codes, any exchange, right, have the same codes. And then the legal interoperability. So, all the countries are going to have the same laws to enforce this. So I had to read all those laws. Like, well, this is interesting. I got to, because the laws speak, right? Like you would never have to bring one medical document to court for a conspiracy theory case. You just have to bring in their own laws, in my view, their own laws. So I looked at it. And for healthcare, and the reason why I put it at the end of healthcare is it basically says face-to-face healthcare will be a last discretionary to the system event. So you're going to have AI healthcare. So all the doctors and nurses being quiet and like mumbling into the system, signing up, with silence with their body, they're being replaced in real time. And it's discretionary face-to-face healthcare. System decides. But it doesn't define face-to-face healthcare as a doctor-patient relationship. So then you're also seeing that the doctor-patient relationship relationship is gone. So that provides like where we're going. And then health, right? Like, can you run? Can you do push up? I don't know. Like, are you flexible? What are you going to define yourself for as healthy? As you're not coughing right now. I don't know. Health is 9 sectoral data spaces. Like, could it be more dehumanizing? And then it described freedom. And everybody remembers like how they spelled freedom in Canada when the convoy was around. It was free and then D-U-M-B, freedom. Like, it's dumb to want your freedom. Well, because they spelled out a long time ago what freedom is morphing to. And it was freedom of movement of goods, capital, services. What services? Are those little kids? Right?
Freedom not to be offended or not to
services.
Be like abused.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they really,
so freedom. They really skewed. I heard the politicians in Canada talking about how, these people have a freedom not to be hated and all. And it's like, whoa. That's the opposite of freedom,
Yeah. We should have the freedom to be offensive to other people. Yeah. It's offensive speech that'll move this along. But now compliance is what this order has enforced. And the people that are bound by the order are in bondage. And we've inverted our systems, and we haven't had even a tank roll through. Like we haven't had a shot roll through. So healthcare was redefined to be AI, and your freedom's redefined, and it's a big data collection system, and it works with the hardware, which is the smart city. And so we're being driven in through, yeah.
Can we just back up a sec again? And what was this?
Sorry.
What was this organization again? Was it a like an NGO type thing or a charity type thing, or who was on the board of directors, or like who was like running this organization?
So TEDIS was an organization that would help the European Union develop the laws, right?
Okay. Yeah.
For these data act. And then I followed up, and it's like the G20 and OECD would track countries' compliance with the system, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And they would rate the country, like where they were on their data acts and what have you, where they were on their semantic interoperability to technical interoperability. And since 2012, they've been monitoring and pushing us into the system. But you see, that's not even discussed, in media. It's not discussed in Parliament. It had people who are even in AI talk about Grok or ChatGPT, but they don't see that we're being put into a system where the hardware is our smart city, and the software are all the cameras and the infrastructure. And then this whole system, this technical system, and what it can do, and the laws that are set out define what it is that system intends to do. And so you look at Mark Carney, right, in Canada, like he, by hook or by crook, he had to become the mop-up job here.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I mean, I just read
going to be Mark.
I just read your post about Carney and his wife or husband, or and Butts and all, and Eurasia. I mean, that blew me away. The whole description of Eurasia. I mean, it's like this can't really get any higher level of infiltration into our government from the globalists. After reading that post.
Yeah, you could go a little bit higher. I did a post on Mark, and there's a group called the Group of 30. It's the 30 most powerful men and women with Adam's apples that run central bank financing. And no, seriously, I tracked the president of the World Trade Organization. She's now goes by a she, but if you look her up on open sanctions, when she was first in government, she was a he, right? And now she's but Mark Carney, up until March 2025, was a member of the Group of 30. Now, the Group of 30 has like Mr. Christine Lagarde in it. She's the one who says by October of 2025, we're going to have central bank digital currency in Europe. Well, then you have Carney saying, well, I want to be with Europe, right? And you have the coalition of the willing wanting to go to war, right? Biden wanted to put the Americans into a hot war with Russia, and now we have, Carney and Europe putting together a coalition for a hot war. So, which is again then just another layer of absurdity, because those are the same people, Mark Root and all these WEF types, who believe in climate change, right? So, on the one hand, you need like intense militarization, no carbon ever mentioned. And on the other side, you have a cow, right? You have a cow or a car just driving by the road, right? And so we're supposed to be afraid of climate change and afraid of carbon on the one side. And on the other side, we're going to war. Well, he took down his profile at the Group of 30 in March of 2025. You couldn't find it, but I found it on the Wayback Machine. And so I posted on that, because what's above the Group of 30 is the BIS. So you couldn't be more connected into the deep globalist state than Mark Carney. then you look at him. Yeah. Did you have a question? I'm sorry.
No, I'm just laughing at it. It's so crazy that we're here.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy we're here. But the only thing I've got to say that is really, really positive, because sometimes people really need to hear a positive message, is that they would not work so hard to censor our words if they weren't afraid of them. Like, they would not come up with like a scheme so intensely foolproof that I discovered in this book. They wouldn't come up with a scheme like this that is so punitive, that is so like, if you say one word, if they were not afraid of our words. Like, it's just like, oh, I have that much power, right? I have that much power. They are that afraid of us.
But I want to challenge that a little bit, or I've got my own good news sort of aspect. Lately, I've been thinking that we have to go through it. Like in some ways that we have to, I don't think we can stop them. And I think they're going to fail. Like, I just don't trust that and that's the only thing that will get us to the next stage, is their failure in this implementation, because we're just in like 60% of brainwashed people in Canada still. We're never going to break through to those people. We just need to go through this exercise and watch them fail. I think that's good news. Like, to me, like, I'm at a point where I'm like, it's just watch this happen with fascination, because I just don't think we can change enough people's minds.
We also have the added bonus of being, while we are trying to partner up to Europe in a lot of ways, we're also a couple decades behind Europe. Whether that's 20 or 30 or 50, they're a lot more advanced down the globalist road than we are in the West. A lot of that's probably because we got Uncle Sam living next door. So, and I mean, Trump, for whatever he's worth, we can unpack that a little bit later, but it would seem like our proximity to Trump and MAGA and all that right now is it's slowed things down a little bit, and we were already kind of slow. I have a buddy that comes over from the UK hunting quite a bit, and that's what he always says. He's like, whenever I come here, I just think of England like 40 years ago. You guys are like 40 years still behind where we are in immigration and globalization and surveillance and everything. And when you go to England, you really notice it. I mean, there's cameras everywhere. There's Indians everywhere. You have like complete sections of the country that are completely just unassimilated, right? You go through London and these people are still dressing like they're in whatever country they came from. Whereas that seems to be less of a problem in Canada. So I would add to Graham's good news is that, I mean, in our lifetime, we might see the Islamic Republic of France. And that might be the type of thing that makes Canadians say, whoa, those Islamists just took over fucking France, and look how quick shit went, like, because it's going to happen fast, right? As soon as the Islamists get the majority government and they can start making changes to the constitution, France, as we know it, is over. And when I was going through all the numbers just last week, it seems like France is going to be the first one. Germany's not far behind, and Italy's not far behind, but France seems to be like, it's going to be one of those three, and France is sort of leading the way. And with a little luck, it'll be well before they're ready to do that sort of thing here, because I think watching Sharia law be implemented in Paris might make some Canadians go, whoa, what the fuck just happened?
It could be, right? I think like the migration compact is worth reading, because it breaks down, I always go back right to the laws. What are they doing? What are they doing? So the UN migration compact was passed, I think, between
you
15
can even
and
read
17.
their replacement paper from 2001, where they knew then that the Western civilization was in big trouble, and they were already making plans then on how to just supplement it with the third world instead. And the thing is, they align that with all these sort of stop having kids things.
But we're in trouble because of them, though.
Well, yeah, of course.
So what they do,
I mean, we have to take. There is sort of this natural thing that seems to happen with wealth, is that countries just start having less and less and less kids. So I do think that I do blame them. I do blame them for saying this, and you have the feminist movement, and you have all this sort of stuff breaking out. But at the end of the day, we stopped having kids too. So I mean, I still kind of sit in the middle on what's better. Probably just the slow death of the nation is better, and the slow collapse, than what we're doing now. But we don't seem interested in getting ourselves out of this mess either. I mean, you look at Italy and Germany, and those are two countries that are past the point of mathematical possibility of regenerating the civilization. Once you get to 1.3 children per women, it's mathematically impossible to reverse the trend. So I mean, those Germany, Italy, Greece are already dead. We're just going through the death throes now. There's no way that they can bail out of that. Not remigration, not getting rid of immigrants. They've passed the point where they're not having enough kids to replace themselves, and there's no way to pull out of it. I think if you actually run the numbers, it's like for every kid right now, there'll only be 4 grandparents or something like that, or however it works. But for every 100 people right now, there's only going to be 4 children or something like that.
So, 2 points. First, I'll go on the migration compact, because it's really, really interesting. If you said to a migrant who has a subsistence farm in Pakistan or Afghanistan or someplace in Africa, and you said, I'm going to put you in your city in Kabul. No, thank you. Okay, well, I'm going to take you off the land, and I'm going to put you in New York or someplace in the UK and I'm going to put you in a hotel, because that's the way the migration compact requires you to feed them, house them, emancipate them, like let them achieve their goals. They go to school, they get health care, you're supposed to employ them, like there's a duty, right? And so that's all our taxpayer. It's just like, it's totally screwing the country it's going into completely, right? And that Carney's part of the Century Club. But on the other side of it, it's a land grab too, right? We have to expand. The reason why you have dialogue is that you have to see both sides so that they align with you and not the globalist, right? So it's a land grab on the other side. Now we have piling in, especially in the UK, you're going to see mostly fighting age men, right? And they're being set up near schools, and they're being set up, right? And they've had that, the Pakistani rape game. Like, that's kind of like a multi-generational, several decade rape gang. But it's the Keir Starmers. He was the head prosecution at the time, right? Not doing anything. So you have the lead pedophiles in power that aren't really doing anything. Like, is he a lead pedophile? Well, I have a post you're really going to have to go to that has a whole bunch of UK pedophiles that are exposed, and they're all knighted. And so after a while, you got to wonder whether if you get a knighted, you're knighted, or, well, you're a child effort, right? Like if you're a dame, or am I going to like start thinking of you as an extreme pedophile, right? Like Seville and a whole bunch of other ones. They're all knighted. They're all knighted, and they were all being exposed at the time, and they still get these honors, like way back into Thatcher's time. This has all been going on for a really long time. But then if you look at the migration compact that takes all these men, on the other side, right? What's it doing? Leaving all the women. So what we're doing is we are setting up societies on both sides that the women and children are vulnerable, right? When we don't have parity between men and women, the women and children just naturally are vulnerable. So in the societies where you're setting up and you're bringing in only men, right? And you're also at the same time taking away rape laws, right? You're taking away the protections and the deterrent effect of jail. That's what's happening in Canada. And then on the other side, why?
Yeah,
if you're going to take down
why
the
is it
state,
so obvious? Like, why are they doing it so obviously? Like, that's what I can't figure out is why they're doing it so overtly.
well, but then because if you say it, you're told you're racist, and then you're silenced, you lose your job, you're part of this system that I describe in the book, you can't say it, so you're either in bondage, and now the UK is even arresting people to the tune of 30 people a day for memes that dispute migration. So it's not really obvious. You have, so the people who have jobs can't say it because they're in bondage. The people who do say it are going to jail. So it's obvious or not obvious, but it's really not in the broader discussion. But who's talking about the fact that once you have communities in those other countries that are denuded of their fighting age men, it's kind of interesting too, right? Because the Gates organization went into India and sterilized a bunch of people with vaccines, right? Like there are countries that just don't want in Africa that didn't want the vaccines because of the history of it all, and those leaders were killed, right? So you have a grand depopulation. I'm sorry, it's a depopulation on all sides, right? And we see our perspective, and it's completely legit. It's a completely legit, and you really have to take down the nation state to insert globalism, and you have to take down the architecture of power that would hold them account to insert globalism. But I think they want us pigeonholed because Luciferianism is really just making two sides fight each other. So they really need the idea of us hating the migrant, focusing on that conflict being the biggest conflict, and they're engineering it all, right? And so my view is,
I mean, that kind of that would leave a lot. So just, I mean, if I'm just going to play devil's advocate here, you send a lot of fighting age men from the Middle East over to Canada, which leaves the Middle East kind of devoid of fighting age men, which, I mean, that's gotta it seems like that would benefit what Israel seems to be up to right now, right? That's going to leave a lot less fighting age men in the countries they want to turn into greater Israel, which they've said, and Netanyahu has actually mentioned in the last month publicly. And it kind of gives us a big problem over here so that they can sort of do their thing. I mean, the whole like Palestine stuff starts to spill into all of it, right?
Yeah, sure. And so the Jewish population in the diaspora, or whatever you want to call it, feels legitimately threatened by anti-Jewish sentiment. But at the same token, you have the Palestinians, right? At some point, there's a limit to a just war, right? That there's so many deaths, and Israel's kind of lost the plot. We all know it, but they still go ahead. And then the protests themselves result in the checkerboarding of anti-protest zones. So you can't protest in this zone, right? You can't protest in front of schools. because of drag time, story hour, or libraries, and you can't protest in front of hospitals because of the Palestine protests, and you can't protest in all these different, they put out bylaws, and we're checkerboarding our areas into you can't, and this is all the setup for the CBDC. So you make it so that it's like a false flag attack, or you anti-insurgency type of work where you make that pro-Palestine, or they want to label it pro-Hamas, and then you get the population to say, yeah, I'm so sick and tired of those protests. Let's get this anti-protest zone. Okay, so we checkerboard that area. You can't protest, right? And you can't walk on the street and protest. And you can't. Oh, you have to be in a certain zone where they all have DEW weapons set up, right? It's I'd say it's very, very useful. But who runs the migration system is the UN Migration Compact and the UNIOS, right? This all goes up to the UN. And if you look at a game called Food Chain Reaction Game, we should break out and have that separate discussion on a separate time about that. It really details what is the plan for 2020 to 2030, and it's all been lining up. Like you're like, oh, you managed to write this all down in 2015, did you? Like, wow, that's how interesting. And they need an unconscionable war, because at the end of the game, they give the military and non-military resources to the UN, right? So you need the wars. You need the sort of the antipathy on either side. You need, like, I wouldn't be surprised if the World Cup in the next couple of years is for Canada and the US to go to war, right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised that's sort of the dialogue and where they're trying to take us, right? It's either, we become part of the US or more Pan America, right? And we have all the infrastructure for Pan America already set up. So there's the Pan American Health Organization.
There's some documents you can get into that looks like the USA could just decide they want Canada at any time and pass it through the Congress and Senate, and that's the end of it. Because I can't unpack it here, but we were talking to a guy that goes back to all this 13th colony paperwork back in the day, and he was saying that they don't need the approval of all the states, and they don't have to go through all that rigmarole like they had to with Texas because of the way Canada was sort of integrated into the original sort of thing. But I think that it seems like the way Canada is shaping up is it reminds me of when Texas joined the United States. I mean, 3 years before Texas became a state, they asked Texas to become a state, kind of like they mentioned to Canada, and Texas freaked out. And they were like, no fucking way. We're the Republic of Texas. We're never going to be a state, blah, 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 blah. Kind of the exact same as the Canada thing rolls out, right? Because it's like, at the time, Texas's entire economy is dependent on the rest of the country, on the United States of America. So they don't have the foresight to realize that they're shooting themselves in the foot by starting an economic war with the United States. It's kind of like Canada is right now. And 2 years later, Texas was begging to join the U.S. because the U.S. put so much economic pressure on them through tariffs and, know this and know that the Texas, 2 years later, the Republic of Texas was begging to join the Union, at which point the Union said, you know what, you can wait another year since you didn't do it when we first asked you. And I could just see over the next 5 to 10, because you can see the numbers coming up right now, right? Like the number of people that I knew when the 51st state thing first came out that were just had this visceral no reaction to it, that are now just sort of, they might not be there yet, but they're like, well, maybe it might make more sense, and you can, I can just see that in 5 or 10 years down the road, if they keep doing what they're doing right now, and the States keeps doing what it's doing right now, because what it seems like is happening in the States right now is the opposite of what's happening right here. Sort of purchasing power is going up. Free speech is coming back in a lot of ways. This inflation they said that was going to happen from the tariffs doesn't seem to be happening. So, I mean, I could picture a thing that without a shot being fired, you just have a majority of Canadians in certain, maybe it starts with certain provinces, maybe it doesn't. But you've got half of Alberta right now begging to join the States to a certain extent. Maybe not half, but at least 1 in 4. And that's with zero sort of campaigning.
really complex discussions because one, I think I did a post, I think it might have been a footnote to Section 15 of the Constitution in the US that did mention that the territory of Canada could be amalgamated. And I'll dig up that post because I looked into it and I thought that, well, okay, that's pretty interesting. But when, have you ever heard of the DNA? So the Declaration of North America. So Biden and Trudeau signed this document called the Declaration of North America.